Hi, this is Toy. Welcome back to the educator.com jQuery Ajax course. Today we're going to actually be talking about Ajax finally after all these lessons. Now remember, what is Ajax as opposed to what is just typical jQuery or JavaScript? Ajax is when you actually make a request from the client and hop back to the web server and get the data back and put it back to the client, as opposed to just doing kind of JavaScripty kind of things like alerts and moving stuff around that's already there. We're actually going to affect a change by going back to the web server and coming back to the client. So let's get started. The two commands I'm going to focus on today. Number one, of course, is the .ajax method. But before we get there, once again, I just want to give you a quick introduction. We got the same setup as we have had before in our previous classes. We're doing a play area on the left side, and on the right side, we're going to hit up these buttons that we're trying to affect changes in the play area. So that kind of looks something like this. So left side here, you've got this play area, and then on the right side, we've got the buttons that we want to affect change over here on this left side. All right, so on the left side, we've got two divs and a input box. Let's see what we can do with it. Oh, first, just to make sure that we are working with the server, here is a screen of the database that we're actually working with. This database is actually live and working. It's got data and it's got users in here. As you can see, I spent the weekend typing in a bunch of names and emails and phone numbers and actives and whatever. Now, just so you know, Charlie number 4 is an inactive user. We did it on purpose. You could use any database that you like. Typically, my setups have always been, when I'm working with PHP, my setups have always been my SQL, but you're welcome to use Postgres or any SQL-based database. And that includes Microsoft Access, because I think Microsoft Access is SQL, takes some SQL commands. Okay, so here we go. We've got a database that's working. We've got it's run by a web server. Let's get our client to interact with it. So the first thing we're going to do is show me the users via Ajax. All right, so let's hit it up. Let's get to the code. We're interested in this button here, Ajax A. And as such before, I have this all ready to go, ready for jQuery. And the command that we're going to do, like I said before, is Ajax. Now, upon looking, if you look at the documentation and you see all the parameters it takes, it just looks like really daunting. Just ignore it all. You know, the only important things, the only important ones is the URL and the data. And maybe the type, depending on what you're doing, but and success. Those are only 3.5 parameters that I am really interested in. Sorry, I typed that all wrong. So what we're going to say is when we do my brain is just a little bit foggy. Here we go. Function. So when we click Ajax A, we want to do an Ajax call. .ajax. Like I said, the only 3.5 parameters that are really important is the URL, because you got to know what URL you're going to go to in the web server to ask the request from, and then the type, which is the half, the data you want to send over, and what you're going to do with that data when you get it back. Okay, so let's start off with that. The URL. Okay, so the URL we're going to go is, let's make a new folder called Ajax, and we're going to we're going to make a file called getusers.php. Now this is here already, so what I'm going to do is delete it so you can see from the beginning how I would do this. Otherwise it's cheating, right? Okay, so get users. So we're going to create something called Ajax, get users in the Ajax directory. And that's where it's going to be on the server, and that's where we're going to ask this request from, or going to ask a request to. Then the type is, and I always like to put this in just because just for assurance's sake. The default is get. I've always found more success across browsers to go with post. Now, that was in the past. Since then, a couple of revs have happened with browsers. Could be that issue is not an issue anymore. But post always works. I like post anyway, versus get in a standard form, so I'm going to keep using it in Ajax form. That's just me, personal preference. You don't have to do that. And then we're going to send over some data just for fun, just so you can see what we're doing. Let's call it, and by the way, it has to be kind of encapsulated here with this, with a standard kind of jQuery notation like this, to accommodate multiple parameters that you want to send over, multiple variables that you want to send over. Let's call it ID1. We're just going to send over 1. We're not even going to use it. I'm just putting it in there for argument's sake, so that you can see how it's being used. And then what we're going to do, then there's a parameter called success, which tells the Ajax command what to do after I've gotten all the data from Ajax users.php, and we do that in a function, and we want the results back. So that's that. Oops, one more. There we go. So what we're going to say is, oops, wrong one. There we go. Extra parentheses there. What we're going to say is, let's look at our play area. We want it in our play area. So there we go. For some reason that's not showing up. Whoa. Okay, here we go. Here's our play area. Let's put it in here, since I've already predetermined that I'm going to put the stuff in here, which is div1. All right? So we say $J in div1. We're going to load up the results in an HTML format. Now remember, we don't want to put it in just text. You know, maybe there's some formatting that comes back with it, because we want everything still to look pretty and within the scope, within the natural layout of the design, which in this case won't be so, beautiful, because as a developer I'm not a very good designer, but we'll try to make it look as pretty as possible. So let's try that. Well, actually, we can't try it. You know why? Because we haven't written our Ajax get users yet. But let's see if we get any. If we try, if we get any weirdnesses, we will. We will fail, because it'll say you don't have any. You don't have a thing called get users, which we haven't built yet. Okay, so show me users via Ajax. Fail, fail, fail. Doing nothing. As expected. All right, so how are we going to roll with this? So we're expecting, so let's go ahead and build out a new directory. And we're going to add a folder, add new folder. It's going to call it Ajax. And then within Ajax, we want to add a new item. And we're going to call it get users.php. So that'll correspond. Oh, why is that an open? Add existing item, cancel. Sorry, dude. Add new item. Ah, there we go. Add new item. Wow, all of these options here, and they're all for .NET. Great. Let's do this. And we're going to get rid of all this, and we're going to save it, close it, rename it to something more meaningful to us. It's going to be get users.php. Yes. Okay. So let's pop this open. All right, cool. So we could do something really simple like print hello world, just to make sure that it works. Now, when you're doing Ajax calls and you're getting something back from the server, you have to say print, okay? It's not just return the data. You actually have to print it out because it's, I actually have to tell you, I don't know why it's designed that way, but it's sort of like, that's the way it's designed. So you can't just say return hello world and and it works. Print, it actually prints it out and does something with it. So let's say print hello world, and let's see if we get something out of there. Let's reload this. Show me Ajax, users via Ajax. And that's not happening. Let's inspect this element. And here's this great little thing, the console. Ah, that's why. Results is not defined. That's probably because, did I spell it wrong? Yes, because I'm looking for results and I put in result. All right. So here's a great debugging tool to help you while you're doing jQuery stuff. This console provides you with JavaScript warnings when you're doing bad stuff. So I pretty much have that open all the time. So let's reload this. Clears it out. Let's do something here. Up. Print hello world. The reason why it actually printed out hello world is as opposed to, printed out print hello world as opposed to printed hello world is because right now we're in HTML mode. We're not in PHP mode. Now if I were to do this, that puts us in PHP mode. And if I were to hit that up, bam. Okay, now you'll see below on this console here, it returns this 200. The 200 is in HTML world. I don't know if you know yet. 200 returned from the server means that it's okay, and it shows you the response. If you look at the previous one, it'll show you the response from before. So it's a great little handy tool if you're getting stuff back that you're not expecting, or if you're not getting stuff back, then you get the red errors like we were getting before. Invaluable, actually. Like I said, I keep it up all the time when I'm actually developing. Okay, so let's move on. Let's actually get the users via Ajax. Now it becomes just a matter of PHP, right? So because we know that the Ajax mechanism is now working, we know that if I make the call from jQuery Ajax, it's hitting the server, it's returning me stuff back, in this case, evaluated PHP called hello world, and sending me back, and now I know I'm putting it in the right place. It didn't go to div 2, it didn't go to the text box, it went to div 1. So now it's just a matter of just getting the PHP to work the way we want it to work, which is we want it to get users. Okay. And in this particular case, what I've done is we have to require once all the configurations, the configuration to the database, so that the username and password, which I have. When you use your own database, you'll be using your own configuration. I've already preset mine in a file called config.inc.php, and then we're gonna. I've also set up the whole database mechanism, which in a class called db.class.php, and that does stuff like opens the connection with the configuration values and sets up the SQL, sets up the database ready mode, basically, so that all I have to do now is, because it's a class, instantiate a new DB class and start calling my SQL calls. Okay, so the SQL that I want is select. Let's look at the database first. So I want, let's just say, for fun, let's just get all of it. We want the user ID, the email, the phone, active, whether it's active or not. Okay, so let's select user ID, user, email, phone, whether it's active or not, from user, because that's the name of the table. And we want to order it, because if you look at it, I've kind of put it all in random order here, just as I was coming up with names. We want to order it by the username. Let's just do alphabetical order so we know that it's working right. Order by user. Okay? Now we do a fetch data equal, no, I'm sorry, we do a query, MySQL query. Now, I can't type and think at the same time. Now, again, as we're doing this, I'm making these assumptions that you have worked with MySQL and you have worked with PHP. And if you have not, I really suggest you go look at the other courses and kind of get really familiar, because this is kind of the stuff on top of those kind of fundamentals that you need to know. All right, so let's hit this back. So we grab the data, and then what we're going to do is while row equals, let's go fetch the data, fetch assoc on the data. And we're gonna, actually before we do that, let's do this. Let's set up the table so that it's nice. Once again, you do all this cool stuff, but you still have to make it look nice, because if it doesn't look nice, you know, people will be like, what is this gobbledygook? Oh, they get out their giant thick glasses and be like, oh, I think it's my database. So you still got to make it nice for your peeps. All right, so let's set up the table as we would like to see it in a nice, neat manner. We're going to put headers in here. I've already set up in the CSS a class for the header TDs as grid header TD, as you can see. This is how I tend to like to build out my data-driven grids. I like to put the widths in the header. I like to set that up. Because those shouldn't be changing. Those should be really consistent. Okay, so we're getting the user ID. We're getting the user. That might be 80-ish. We're getting the email, which is typically much longer, so that might be 250, 200. I kind of made them short on purpose. We're getting the phone, which might be about 120. And whether it's active or not is going to be pretty short. It's a 0 or a 1. All right, cool. Let's put this on the bottom. Okay, so we've set up the header. We've set up the header for this grid that we're going to return back. Now let's actually make the grid. So while we have rows in this data set that we've fetched, let's print it out. Let's say first we have to hit up a TD. Oh, this is better. Ugh. Sorry folks, my typing is not so stellar today. So, also in the back in my CSS, just like I've set up a grid header TD, I've already set up a grid data TD. And this time I don't need to add the widths. The widths are done. Once the widths are set once, it applies throughout the whole table. That's the beauty of that. That's why you do it in the header. The first one we're going to return the user ID. Okay, so we'll echo row, and because I'm fetching a soc, we can do this, user ID. And then it's just a matter of filling in the blanks here. Okay, we're not, this ID, the second one is email, the third one is email, the fourth one is phone, and the last one is active. We have an extra row, we'll just get rid of that. So we set up the call, the database call. We build a table, a grid. We grid it out. We build a table to start manufacturing this data to spit out. First part of it, of course, have a header to make it nice for people, and then for each row in your data set, go ahead and spit it out. That's all there is to it, really. Oh, I did also, by the way, set up a class for grid. Now, I call it a grid because it is a grid. You know, I'm going to get on my soapbox for 5 minutes here. Everybody's, you know, there was a time when before divs were invented, people were using tables to design out layouts. And then finally when divs were invented, and they were still the old school people who were still using tables to design layouts, and all the people were like, oh, don't do that, it's really, really bad. But you know what? When you're doing a grid, that's what it is. It's a table. Use a table for a table, and use a div for a div. Doesn't mean just because you don't want to use a table for design, which is correct, doesn't mean you don't use a table to spit out table data. Use a table for table data. That's why it's there. Okay, it's a great tool. And we call it a grid because it's kind of grid. It's like, you know, like a spreadsheet, just like Battleship. So let's try it out. Okay, so once again, we have we're just hoping that we've built this request to get back the users. We're hoping it'll pop back here in this div1 Ajax. Let's refresh the page and show me users via Ajax. Bam! There it goes. That table is still darn ugly. All right, I'm here not to teach you design, but to teach you how to develop. And like we said, in our sample data, we picked up Toy, we picked up Eric, we picked up Josephine, and we picked up Charlie, and Charlie is inactive, as we have noted before, so his data is correct. Now, show me users via load. What does that mean? You know, Ajax, if we're going to use the Ajax method. The reason why I showed you first is that's like the main Ajax method. Everything else from there is less complicated. I particularly like to use Ajax because I get to control every single little feature of it. For example, like if I wanted to, there's another feature I could have added in here to kind of make it really nice, and that is before send feature, which means before I send the Ajax request, I'm going to do this function. I'm going to put the spinner, everyone knows that Ajax spinner, put the spinner inside div1 so people know that you're actually making a request to the web server, that you're actually doing something as opposed to just, you know, I'm only returning back here, what, 20 or so records, but say you're returning back 200 records, 500 records, very possible. Say you do a request in Amazon for books with the keyword of tree in it. You're going to get back 1,000, 2,000 records. So could very well be that you'll see that spinner spinning. Hopefully it'll pop up. This is a small request, so it'll pop up for a brief half a second. There it is. It sort of popped up because I don't think the spinner might not actually be in the images folder. Let's go find it. Here it is, the spinner, spinner.gif. That's because of this here. Let's see if this is going to work now. There it is. Spinner shows up. So I like to control those little details because, well, it makes it for a nicer user experience. Now, if you find that you don't need all those details, because, well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just want it quick and dirty. jQuery has put together a ton of streamlined methods that you can use in its stead. One of them is, let's look at one of them right now, which is load. And it's basically an Ajax call. It's just that it's just making a couple assumptions for you already. Like your post, your type, and stuff like that. That you don't want to before send, all that kind of stuff. So let's try it. Load a dot click function, and that kind of looks something like this. All it requires really is, let's put this in div 2, by the way, so we know that we're working on something else. Load. All it requires is a URL. How simple is that? So let's just give it the URL of ajax.getUsers.php. Because like before, I was just doing this to show you that it was actually working, but it doesn't really require any data. It's already implied by doing this here that the success function, that the success is going to go into the results of that successful call is going to go into div 2. All right, let's try it. Let's load this up. And we're expecting it to go here. So let's show me users via load. Bam, there it is. This is div 2. All right, simple enough. So there's another one, there's other ones called post and get. If you want to go strictly by gets, if you want to go strictly by a post, you can do that too. Try it, experiment, see what works for you. Like I said, what works for me is using the Ajax method. Oh, by the way, if you wanted to show that nice little spinner beforehand, this is what I do using the load command. I set it up so that it spins. First thing it does is spin. And then when the call comes back from the server, it just looks like it's normal. Let's try that. There it goes, spinning, and then the call comes back. So, easy peasy, right? Just set up your mechanism so that you have the call, the initiator, you have the jQuery call, and you have a place to put the results back from your jQuery call. That's it. You could do some really great stuff with this, and if you keep watching the further lessons, you'll see some really cool examples. All right, thanks a lot. We'll hit you up next time. Educator.com, jQuery, and Ajax.